Tonight, a wildfire ignites in central British Columbia.
And this fire sounds like a freaking freight train.
Fueled by hot, dry conditions covering much of the province, and it's only May.
I wouldn't have done it if I didn't think it was safe.
How secure are your email money transfers? An Ontario woman lost hundreds to a scammer. Now she's going public.
It would be nice to have a team in Vancouver.
Looks at the clock, turns the corner for the win!
As Raptors fever sweeps Toronto and beyond, could Canada see a second NBA franchise? Commissioner Adam Silver is our Sunday interview. This is The National. Most Canadians look forward to the change in seasons this time of year, but spring can also be punishing. Tonight, thousands of people in different parts of the country are dealing with nature's wrath. In Ontario, some are still coping with severe flooding as the Ottawa River rises yet again, while in the heart of BC, others face an early start to wildfire season. Evacuation orders and alerts are in effect over a wildfire near Fraser Lake. Now, that's about 150 kilometers west of Prince George. The BC Wildfire Service says the fire, likely human-caused, broke out yesterday. By this morning, it had ballooned to about 260 hectares. Our Renee Filipponi is tracking that for us tonight.
It is so loud. This is all the smoke.
All residents can do is watch crews work to contain the flames that threaten their homes.
All big fires start out small, and that had concern for myself as well as other residents in the area. And so I immediately went out there to try to capture some footage.
Complicating things are winds that keep switching directions, but firefighters are making progress.
The air crew and the ground support have done an amazing job and really got on this fire quickly and come in here and save the day.
Last year, this part of BC dealt with an enormous fire that burned for weeks. In the end, it torched nearly 100,000 hectares. But that fire started in late July, not mid-May.
Many of us are concerned. The communities are concerned. All the way around us, central BC is definitely heating up every year.
A major factor for this fire is the dry conditions caused by an unusually early heat wave. By week's end, dozens of temperature records were broken over much of the province. And it's not the only wildfire burning right now. A smaller one was spotted this afternoon near Kamloops. Experts believe that since this is an El Nino year, it could be just the beginning of a bad fire season. They also add that fires this early in the year are rare but not unheard of.
It's common over the historical record, not only where we've been measuring forest fires in the last few decades, but over hundreds of years. El Ninos tend to be big fire years. And so this is one that we need to be prepared for in advance.
Something officials will clearly be thinking about, given the challenging fire situation in the province over the past couple of years. Several of those giant fires were believed to be human-caused, which is why they're now pleading with people to be careful this year, to not toss cigarette butts out windows, and make sure campfires are out. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, Vancouver.
It's not just BC facing early trouble. Parts of the U.S. are already at risk, too. The American Pacific Northwest is already as dry as a bone. The U.S.-based National Interagency Fire Center warns of above-normal wildfire potential there this month. And then the danger moves south as the calendar flips to June, when huge parts of Oregon and California are expected to see abnormally risky conditions as well. So clearly, rain is desperately needed in British Columbia, but that is the last thing many in central Canada want. Flooding there is getting worse thanks to downpours this weekend. Some areas already devastated where people thought the worst was over are places now bracing for rising water again. Communities along both sides of the Ottawa River remain under a state of emergency. It did reach its peak more than a week ago, but then, just as the water levels began dropping, days of rain drenched the region. So that, combined with overflowing reservoirs and more snow melt, means the river is now creeping higher again. And that means more sleepless nights for residents fighting to protect their homes. Olivia Stefanovich met up with some of them today.
The only way to reach everyone stranded is to get on board. An hour and a half north of the capital, 100 homes are engulfed by the Ottawa River in this area. And now the military is stepping in. Canadian Armed Forces troops aren't just here checking on the water level, but also people's well-being.
You're okay? All your neighbors are good? As far as I know.
Making sure everyone is safe and has an evacuation plan. Captain Roland Llewellyn-Thomas served 7 months in a war zone. Now he's making sure people at home get the care they need.
I went to Afghanistan a long time ago, and this is very rewarding to be able to see the impact we're having helping fellow Canadians.
This is the Etchier's family cottage, where the water's edge is typically much lower.
If you look at this photo here, it's usually way about 30, 40 feet down from where it is now. The water now is about borderline with our deck.
So the water's come over that retaining wall?
Over it, yes, yeah.
Cheryl Etchier grew up here. To see it in this condition now,
it's heartbreaking. I never thought that this would happen.
Her dad's never seen the river this high. The cottage withstood the historic flood of 2017. Now water is 2.5 feet higher than 2 years ago, seeping through the squishy floorboards. What is your biggest worry right now?
Mold. Mold is the biggest thing. If we can keep that to a minimum.
The family vows to rebuild, but it's taking an emotional toll.
I'm tired. I'm very tired. I'm stressed. That's all, depressed. But at other times I think about, what I have to do to rebuild too. I just can't sit there and say, okay, we're just going to take a bulldozer down. No, we're not going to do that.
As the second crest passes, the beloved family cottage remains vulnerable, especially with more rain in the forecast this week. The fight here, far from over. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Westmeath, Ontario.
Now to a Go Public investigation into security concerns about an online service Canadians use to send money every day, e-transfers. Just take a look at these numbers. Nearly 21 million Canadians had used Interact service by the end of last year, making more than 1 million transactions per day, moving over $132 billion in 2018. But that system is not foolproof, as we hear in this investigation by Erica Johnson from our Go Public team.
Listen, I'm really, truly losing faith in my branch.
Ann Hoover is on yet another call with RBC. She spent hours fighting for more than $1,700 stolen from her account after she e-transferred her friend.
I wouldn't have done it if I didn't think it was safe.
RBC said the email of the friend receiving the money had been hacked, and Hoover used a weak security question.
The manager continued to insist that the Royal Bank had done everything that they could and that they were secure, that it wasn't really their problem, it was now our problem.
Online, RBC tells customers they're fully protected and will be reimbursed for any unauthorized transactions. Deep in the fine print, it says customers must use passwords and security questions that are unique and that cannot be easily guessed.
It's just sort of this denial and pushing of any kind of responsibility onto the customer.
I will show you a couple of dark web sites.
This cybersecurity expert says lists of emails and passwords are bought and sold on so-called dark websites.
There are hundreds, if not thousands, in just this one alone.
So, he says, financial institutions should make mandatory stronger protections for e-transfers, like two-factor authentication involving a password and a code that arrives as a text message or a separate email.
They should be forcing users to use two-factor and not just give it to them as an option. Every user needs to have their account protected to the best of their ability, not to the minimum standard.
In the end, RBC gave Ann Hoover half the money stolen from her account, but she and her friend have sworn off ever using e-transfer again. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
So how do you protect yourself? Experts recommend changing your email passwords often. They also have some general tips. Now, you may have heard them before, but they are worth repeating. Create passwords that are impossible to guess. Don't tell people your passwords. Don't use the same password for multiple sites. Try using a password manager. Use software to protect against viruses and spyware, and do a credit check once a year just to make sure there has been no unauthorized activity. And if you have a tip for the Go Public team to investigate, you know what to do. Send them an email at gopublic@cbc.ca. Now, it's been said Donald Trump started his re-election bid the moment he became the U.S. president. He's certainly thrown enough rallies to fire up his base. But the Democrats are in full-on campaign mode, too. Almost 24 contenders so far. And as Paul Hunter reports, each one is trying to find the message that will just take off.
It's a familiar scene among Democrats across the U.S. these days. In this case, Texas lawmaker Beto O'Rourke campaigning this weekend in New Hampshire. He's hardly alone. In the battling over who will take on Trump for the White House next year, it's become a very crowded field. California Senator Kamala Harris today, for example, pledging tougher gun laws.
I'm prepared to take executive action because that's what's needed.
While South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg took a more general tack.
I am here to build bridges and to tear down walls.
But the challenge for Democrats broadly is deciding the best way forward. Policy ideas or, as backers of former Vice President Joe Biden insist, is it that voters simply want whoever can send Trump packing? Indeed, say many, that's Biden.
I would vote for Joe Biden because I think he has the best chance of winning the presidency.
But after all this time with President Trump, the biggest question of all, how many Trump voters from 2016 will stick with him next time? Likewise, for that matter, senior Republican lawmakers.
It's Saturday Night Live.
Though, as it went in a skit on Saturday Night Live last night, the answer may well be plenty.
Okay, let's say Trump open hand slaps you in the face. What would you say then?
Harder, Daddy.
And so it goes. As Trump himself put it last week, to all those now lining up to take him on.
I'll take any. Let's just pick somebody, please, and let's start this thing. Let's start it. Pick somebody.
After all, he might well have added, only 540 days left until the vote. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
Now some other developing stories we're watching tonight on The National, starting with the Mark Norman case.
Ça c'est mon bout, oui.
You may recall the Vice Admiral was accused of leaking cabinet secrets and that a charge of breach of trust was stayed against him on Wednesday, while some opposition members have alleged political interference and have forced an emergency meeting of the National Defense Committee to push for an investigation. Okay, well, that terrifying but ultimately safe landing happened in Myanmar. This airliner scraped its nose on the runway after its front landing gear failed to deploy. All 82 passengers and 7 crew were unharmed. On Wednesday, interestingly, another passenger plane slid off the runway at the same airport. And those are songs of praise being sung again in Sri Lanka's Catholic churches. These are the first services since the Easter Sunday bombings killed more than 250 people. Religious leaders temporarily banned Mass amid fears Islamist militants were planning further attacks. Catholic schools remain closed, but they are set to reopen on Tuesday. There's now just one round of voting left to decide who will govern India, the world's largest democracy. Today, in part 6 of this colossal, drawn-out process, 100 million people were eligible to cast a ballot. Partisans tried to shout each other down, and security forces chased protesters, indications of a highly divisive campaign. Both leading parties say they will deliver more jobs and help for India's poorest. But the ruling BJP is also running a platform it calls India First. Sound familiar? Some call it a strategy that throws suspicion on Muslims to exploit a fear of danger from Pakistan. Now, amid all those tensions, Nala Ayed was on the ground in New Delhi today to get a sense of what the people want and then what they're being offered.
In the final hours of a caustic campaign, a big rally in the narrow alleys helps cut through the noise. East Delhi's a rival city, desperate for the attention. The needs of the migrants here as enormous as their hope is alive.
We are trying to sell an equal India, where development is not just for 20% of the people, but for every citizen.
India's gigantic election isn't just one story. It's countless stories of the incalculable concerns of 900 million eligible voters.
Powerful. We feel powerful because so many people showing up on such a big day.
So big a democratic exercise that a month later, this is still the 6th of 7 phases, so that the limited numbers of armed police can be rotated around the country to keep the peace. Want more evidence? It takes the help of 12 million civil servants to run it all smoothly, says this former chief of the Election Commission.
They're all government servants because we don't trust anybody else. And their neutrality has to be ensured.
There are hundreds of parties running, each with its own symbol to help even illiterate voters choose. In Delhi, it's a three-way battle between the lotus, the broom, and the hand.
Madam, please.
That is the symbol for the Congress Party. Its leader, whose Nehru-Gandhi lineage is steeped in India's politics, is taking on sitting Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Rahul Gandhi, the head of Congress, has just voted, and as Modi's main challenger, there's a great deal of interest in what he has to say.
It was a good fight, he says. Modi used hate, we used love, and I believe that love is going to win, he says. In 2014, Modi's nationalist BJP party won in a landslide, and many see this vote as a referendum on his record. His candidate here rejects accusations Modi has fueled religious tensions between the majority Hindu and the Muslim minority.
Unfortunately, some people who don't understand us talk this language because they need to know India better.
Modi predicts his BJP will win an even bigger majority this time. The more they abuse us, he says, the more the lotus will bloom. The battle between the status quo and change isn't over. There's still one more vote to go. A big decision and a colossal feat. And yet, on May 23rd, the results will be tabulated and announced within just a few hours. Nala Ayed, CBC News, New Delhi.
As Nala said, India has 900 million eligible voters from a population of 1.3 billion. More than 8,000 candidates are running for a total of 958 seats, both nationally and in state legislatures. By law, no voter should have to travel more than 2 kilometers to cast a ballot, so there are 1 million polling stations and 4 million voting machines. In total, the world's largest democracy will spend a record $9.5 billion to determine what it is the people want. Ahead tonight on The National, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver is the Sunday interview. He talks with Rosie about the future of the league in Canada and the incredible success of these guys.
Kawhi up top, looks at the clock, turns the corner for the win!
There's a beautiful moment. The Toronto Raptors taking it down to the wire to cement their spot in the Eastern Conference Finals for only the second time in franchise history. Plus,
I'm so thankful that somebody was there that took the time to see why some crazy person was screaming in her vehicle.
And she was screaming because she had just gone into labor in the middle of a grocery store parking lot. The stranger who saved the day coming up in our moment. First, though, just in time for Mother's Day, a new photo from the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Those tiny feet belong to the newest royal newborn, Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor. And if you look closely, you'll find what many say is a subtle tribute to the late Princess Diana. Those flowers in the background look a lot like forget-me-nots, Harry's mom's favorite. Two Canadian women are back in this country tonight after spending long weeks in an East African jail. One of them says she had gone to her parents' homeland to help women facing persecution, but Somaliland can be dangerous. It's a part of Somalia that wants to be its own country, and Canadians are advised not to go there. When the women arrived home this morning, Natalie Nanowski was there.
I don't really know how I feel. I feel a lot of things, so.
28-year-old Maimona Abdi was too shaken to answer questions. So she read a statement saying it was media coverage that pressured Somaliland officials to finally let them go.
We waited for statements from MPs and ministers of government that never came.
Abdi had gone to Somaliland alone to fight for women's rights. Instead, she and friend Karima Watts spent more than 2 months in prison. In a recorded phone conversation with advocates working to free the pair, Abdi described her mental state.
I'm nervous all the time. I have anxiety, I'm depressed. I'm being held in here even though I did nothing.
The women were arrested for allegedly consuming alcohol, which is forbidden in Somaliland. But advocates say Abdi was targeted for her work to stop forced marriages.
It was the police saying, you're interfering in the affairs between husbands and wives, so we're going to silence you. And that's when the nightmare began.
They went there on their own volition. They weren't affiliated with any NGO. There is a travel warning in place from Canada. Some people would look at this and say the government doesn't have to intervene.
If we're going to honor and celebrate the idea of grassroots solidarity and cooperation, this is what it looks like.
Canada does try to do what it can, but this lawyer says people shouldn't depend on the government to save them. That's especially true in a place like Somaliland, where Canada has no diplomatic presence.
The regime tends to be very authoritarian. There's no rule of law and there's massive corruption. So it's a high-risk scenario for any Canadian.
Global Affairs Canada isn't commenting today. The women are happy to be home, but they aren't happy about having to repay the government $5,000 for the flight. Experts say that's standard practice, though, and the price you pay for a safe trip home. Natalie Nanowski, CBC News, Toronto.
Up next on The National, the Sunday interview with NBA Commissioner Adam Silver. He and Rosie talk about supporting women in the sport, tackling racism head-on, and the future of the NBA in Canada.
It would be nice to have a team in Vancouver. It's a great market. I frankly have some in-laws that live in Vancouver. I get there. It's a beautiful city. Yeah.
Kawhi up top, looks at the clock, turns the corner for the win!
You could not write a better finish, an unbelievable end to an excruciatingly close game. Kawhi Leonard beats the clock to knock out the Philadelphia 76ers and, of course, take the Toronto Raptors to the NBA's Eastern Conference Finals for the second time in their history. And the oh-so-lucky Greg Ross is at the Scotiabank Arena. Greg, what was it like to see that happen?
That was incredible to witness, I have to tell you. I'm standing right under the basket where it all happened. This is where the magic happened. Kawhi Leonard runs into the corner over here, fires up a shot over Joel Embiid. It hits the rim, not once, not twice, not 3 times, 4 times before falling in. And I can describe that moment when it happened. It was just silence in the building as they watched that ball bounce, bounce, bounce. And then when it finally fell into the rim, it was like an eruption as these fans just went crazy. And then that craziness spilled out outside of the Scotiabank Arena here. We caught up with some of the fans, listened to their reaction after that amazing shot.
Amazing shot, Kawhi, #1.
And I got to tell you, a lot of those fans out there were comparing that shot that Kawhi Leonard made in this game to a shot that Vince Carter made almost 18 years to the day. It was Game 7, Raptors-Sixers, 2001. With 2 seconds left to go in the game, the Raptors down by 1. Vince Carter gets the ball down at the other end of the court, puts up a very similar shot and misses. We get the redemption in this game here today as Kawhi Leonard makes the shot and the Raptors go to the Eastern Conference Final for only the second time in franchise history.
All right, look at you. Right place, right time. Thanks, Greg. Through all their ups and downs, the Raptors have only raised pro basketball's profile in this country. And with homegrown talent making waves across the NBA, the game is thriving here beyond expectations. That success helped open the door to a rare interview with this man, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, who in a few short years has transformed the game. He sat down with Rosie at league headquarters in New York.
He is a woke leader in woke times. In his 5 years as the head of the NBA, Adam Silver has tackled everything from gender equality to racism.
The views expressed by Mr. Sterling are deeply offensive and harmful. That they came from an NBA owner only heightens the damage and my personal outrage. I am banning Mr. Sterling for life.
It took Silver just 2 months on the job to set the tone of how he intended to lead the league, forcing the sale of the Los Angeles Clippers when its owner, Donald Sterling, was caught on tape making racist comments. 2 years later, Silver was at it again, pulling the All-Star game out of Charlotte in response to North Carolina's controversial bathroom law that discriminated against transgender people.
We stand united being against any form of discrimination for any group in our society.
And when the NFL froze out Colin Kaepernick for protesting racial injustice in America, Silver said he was proud of the response shown by NBA players as they rallied behind Kaepernick's cause. It's no wonder he's being called the most progressive commissioner in professional sports. We're happy to have a time with you. I caught up with him at the NBA headquarters in New York.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks for making time for Canada, Commissioner. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it. Obviously, we're feeling pretty good in Canada. We only have the one team, as you know. So we.
You used to have two.
I know. We'll get to that.
All right.
We'll get to that. We're about to celebrate 25 years of the NBA in Canada. How do you feel it has gone, with the exception of the other team, which we will get to? But the success of the Raptors, what are your thoughts about it?
My thoughts are it's gone incredibly well.
Yeah.
I was here 25 years ago when we expanded to Canada, and I think if we rolled the clock back and said, what are our fondest hopes and prospects for basketball in Canada, I think we've met them. I mean, the fact now that we have more players in the league from outside the United States, that the most players are from Canada, 13 right now in the league, which is quite incredible. And we're seeing stars emerging out of Canada. And of course, we're seeing the success of the Raptors right now. And the country, it's not just Ontario, but the country, has adopted the Raptors as their own. And lastly, I'll just say we're seeing it in terms of participation. We're seeing young kids, boys and girls, embracing the sport.
Since you were here when the expansion happened and there was initially the team in Vancouver, I know David Stern previously expressed regret that didn't work out. Do you have the same sentiment, or do you think it was ultimately best that the Grizzlies left when they did?
That's a tough one. I think in retrospect, I wish we had a team in Vancouver right now. I think clearly Canada could handle two NBA teams, sort of West and East in the country. So I share David's sentiment that we do have regret. I think we were a bit ahead of our time. I think there was a moment in the league where prospects seemed down in terms of the team. Attendance was down, ratings were down. So I understood from an economic standpoint why the then team owner wanted to move the team. And unfortunately, we're not in expansion mode right now, but it would be nice to have a team in Vancouver. It's a great market. I frankly have some in-laws that live in Vancouver. I get there. It's a beautiful city. We have regrets, and I think from a business standpoint, it's a failure. I mean, any market we leave, there's no other way to look at it.
What about the concerns that there have been, continue to be, I think, over Canadian teams being able to retain star players, whether it be taxes, weather, whatever? Do you think that those concerns have faded away, or do you think that the Raptors are still trying to? I think they are. If you look at Kawhi, that they're still struggling with that. How do you keep big names?
I don't think that the Raptors are struggling with that. I mean, we'll see what happens here, but I think increasingly we're a 30-team league, and those issues weren't unique to the Raptors. I mean, people have historically said that about lots of markets in the United States. And I think, frankly, in the old days, there was some truth to it from an economic standpoint, that if you were in a larger market in the U.S. as opposed to a smaller market, there was more economic opportunity for the player. I think that's very much changed now. I think that if we have Giannis Antetokounmpo in Milwaukee, viewed as a small market in the U.S., he happened to be the #1 vote getter for fans globally for All-Star this year. I think that makes the point that with digital media and social media these days, you can be a huge global star regardless of where you are. And I mean, given what an incredible city Toronto is, I think the way players see it now, that if I can prosper there, if we have a well-managed team, which you do there, and the team can be successful, and you know, we're seeing obviously real success with the Raptors right now. I don't see any reason why a player wouldn't want to spend his career there. So
what do you think is going to happen to Kawhi Leonard? Because it's a lot of anxiety right now. People are relying on him, and they see a future with him.
The truth is, I don't know. From that standpoint, I really know more than a fan. I mean, I don't think it's my role to sort of question a player, and I think in many cases, I think these are young men who often don't know themselves, and until they're ready to make that decision, they seem to be fully focused. I think Kawhi would be an example of a player like this, who he's all about winning, and I think when it comes time to make that decision, he will, but I have no reason to believe that he isn't incredibly happy in Toronto, and again, we're seeing the success on the floor right now.
How much of the success of the Raptors has to do with Masai, and how much of his success is part of your global footprint because he's the first exec from Africa? How important is that to you?
Masai is incredibly important to this league and to the Raptors. I mean, to your point, I mean, certainly our first African-born GM. He grew up in Nigeria, and I think but is very much a global citizen, and I think that makes sort of him a great fit for Toronto, very much a global city. I mean, and look, 25% of the players in this league right now were born outside the United States, so I think for many of our players, they love the diversity of Toronto, they love living in Canada, so it's very much a positive for a lot of our players.
Why has the NBA taken such a progressive stance on so many social and cultural issues? The All-Stars game in North Carolina, allowing the players to be very much themselves, political if they want to be, and not if they don't. Why is that so important to you, to be progressive in that way?
I think it's part of the DNA of this league. I think the international influence on this league as well. I mean, the fact that we're a diverse league in many ways. I think we preach tolerance to people, that we're accepting of lots of different viewpoints in this league. And something I'm particularly proud of is that as we talk about the safety in being allowed to talk about issues that are important to you, that's been translated by a group of our current players into talking about issues of mental health and wellness. And Kevin Love, DeMar DeRozan, of course, speaking out about anxiety and depression.
I think everyone walks around with something that you can't see.
We all go through it. I don't care who you are. I don't care who you are, man.
The best thing that I did was to come out and say, hey, look, I need some help.
It's been amazing to me because their willingness to talk openly about issues like that has opened the door for literally millions of young people to feel comfortable thinking, well, if these supposedly tough athletes, can destigmatize talking about issues like that. And for those young people, it's not necessarily even about speaking out publicly. It's about their willingness to say to a parent, a teacher, an administrator, a coach that I'm not feeling well, there's something bothering me, things that I know that when I was a kid, and played sports, was something that seemed like the furthest from your imagination, that you would be able to tell someone something like that.
And is there a risk inherent in it? Because obviously other leagues, the NFL is the obvious one, feel quite the opposite. They feel that there is a risk in players being political, associating themselves with political candidates even, which is also welcome here. So is there a risk in it, or does that sometimes worry you that a player might go too far?
Yes, I mean, I think there is risk, and it's part of my job to worry, so yeah. I spend plenty of my time doing that, but ultimately I feel this is values-based as opposed to political. I mean, not to say that players don't have every right to express political points of view, and many do, but I think when it comes to the league speaking out, we don't make political statements. I feel we make values-based statements, and we talk about the long-term, and long-time values of this league, values like diversity, values like tolerance, values like respect for others. Mm-hmm. And I think that as long as we stay on that path and make it values-based, I think we're going to be in the right place.
What a great day to hear from him. The Sunday interview continues after the break. Rosie and the commissioner talk about tackling racism in the league and in the stands. We'll be right back.
I want to talk a little bit about race, because it's one of the things you first had to deal with the Donald Sterling tape, not that we have to go back over that. But some things have sort of popped up again in recent weeks with Russell Westbrook and a couple of other players who have felt and been insulted with racial comments on the floor.
How it started was a young man and his wife in the stands told me to get down on my knees like he used to. And for me, that's just completely disrespectful to me. I think it's racial. I think it's just inappropriate.
What are the league's concerns over racial issues in this country bubbling up into the league? And how can you do anything about that? Because it's a much bigger context, obviously.
It is a bigger issue, of course, than just our league.
Yeah.
I think, though, we of course try to control those things that are within our control, and that is fan conduct, for example. And I think we've tried to make a very bright line, or create a bright line between what is appropriate, I don't know, heckling, call it, that people pay their
Trash
money and
talk.
they come in the arenas and they know, you get to yell at the referees
Yes.
or players, whatever else. You get to yell at the commissioner or whatever, that's all part of it, but then there's something that falls in the category of hate speech. And we had an example in Salt Lake City of something that would have fallen into that latter category, and I think what we do is, by having the appropriate security in the arena and appropriate monitoring, and to quickly act and demonstrate to fans that if you cross a certain line, you won't be welcome in our arenas. I think we're able to deal with that conduct, frankly, in a way that I think society wishes they could. But again, I think it's something that we have to be very vigilant about.
Do you worry about, I think it's 75% of the team is of the players are black, I think that's right, and we do not see it reflected through team ownership, certainly, and even general managers, and there's never been a black commissioner. How much should the league better reflect the people who are playing in it? Is that something you think about?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you look at society, I don't necessarily think the standard is if you have 75% of your players who are black, therefore it creates an obligation that management should be 75% black. I think we should be praised the fact that we have such a diverse workforce. I think, can we be more diverse in terms of ownership and management? Of course, and that's something we're working towards. I mean, it's not, we don't have a quota here, it just happens to the fact that the deputy commissioner of the NBA is black is something that we're proud of, although he's someone who, before he was the deputy commissioner of the NBA, was a longtime employee, just as I was, and moved up the ranks. Michael Jordan, of course, is an owner in this league. We have Vivek Ranadive, born in Mumbai, India, someone of color who owns an NBA team, increasingly more women in positions of management. So it's something we're very focused on, but again, I think that's no different than any industry where we're learning that the best decisions are made by diverse management groups, and changes are coming in society. We're seeing it.
Because you brought up women, just a last question on that topic. The NBA has gone a long way to support the WNBA and women playing basketball, as you say, even in the coaching staff. In Canada, there was the CWHL that just folded, and lots of the women players have now reached out to the NHL to say, why can't you help support us? So I'm just wondering if there is a lesson in what you guys do for the WNBA for other leagues to try and support women in professional sport.
You know, I'm always reluctant to weigh in on other leagues, only because I don't know enough about it. I mean, I certainly read the stories about you know, the hockey league folding, I would say.
But how important is that to the NBA?
Well, in the case of the NBA, the WNBA is critically important. I mean, we've been operating that league for 22 years now, but there are difficult business issues. We haven't turned it into a sustainable business yet, but we're on the path to doing so. We're sitting down with our players now and talking about a new collective bargaining agreement. It's actually our hope that we can build a business that will allow us to pay them more, and even significantly more, and over time, again, be a standalone business.
But you're committed to it.
I'm committed to it. And I think, to your question, do I feel a bit of an obligation? Yes. I think we can never look at sports as just any other business. Because, frankly, if it were any other business, the WNBA probably would not still be in business, because the people who are making the investments would say, we've been at this for a long time, we're not making money yet. So that's not the only way in which we look at it. I think we, in terms of the NBA, we look at it as a strong investment on behalf of basketball generally, on behalf of women. That's why I recognize for hockey or for any other sport, you said it earlier, these are larger societal issues. And again, with the WNBA, I think in many ways we're way ahead of our time, because it's just now we're beginning to see the mainstream acceptance of professional women's sports. And ultimately, if it's going to be a business, that's required, because you need people to buy the tickets and buy the merchandise and watch it on television.
What happens if we win? What happens if Canada wins? Is that a bad thing?
Are you kidding?
I don't know.
It's a wonderful thing. I think whoever wins the championship, no doubt, deserves it. And so I'm rooting for all our teams.
Do you love your job?
I really do.
Yeah, you could tell. Yeah. Thank you for the time. I really appreciate
it.
It's so nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
Here's a quick look at some of the stories we're watching this week on The National. On Tuesday, Alabama's Senate will vote on a near-complete ban on abortions. That would outlaw the procedure from the moment of conception, and that would be the strictest abortion law in that country. So that night, Tuesday night, Lindsay Duncombe will take an in-depth look at this deeply personal, deeply political battle unfolding in the U.S. And Thursday is Election Day in Newfoundland. Liberal leader Dwight Ball is fighting for a second term as premier. Every previous government in that province has had one, but polls show the Progressive Conservatives are closing the gaps. And tomorrow night, we will continue our series looking at gun violence in Canada. Terrence McKenna talks to a former gang member who is now working to keep young people away from the path he found himself on.
What are your memories like here?
Marcel took us on a tour of his old neighborhood.
I grew up here at 55.
And even showed us his favorite hiding places for what he called community guns.
They were guns that weren't personally owned by anyone, but owned by everyone. And key people knew where they were. So here's one of the spaces we used to keep them.
So where would you hide them?
This is one of the spots. As you can see, there's a bunch of light fixtures here. Well, we'd boost each other up and plop them on top of the light fixtures. And that was one of the quick ways we would access them. Then they put cameras in here, and that sort of changed, you know, where we would stash them.
So you'd have to find a new hiding spot?
Oh yeah, we had them all throughout the neighborhood.
Did you get shot?
I have been shot. I still have a bullet in my left leg. That was a pretty horrible day. I guess that would be the day that I would consider the awakening, where I'm not invincible, and that no matter what my reputation was, I was vulnerable, and so were the people around me.
Two strangers, both mothers, brought together in the most meaningful of ways this Mother's Day. Edmonton's Crystal Black and Tamala Peters met just over a month ago when Peters helped Black deliver a baby, not in a hospital, but in a parking lot of a grocery store, actually inside a car in that lot. Black's labor had obviously come on fast and strong, and she needed help right away. And lucky for her, Tamala Peters was there to help deliver a healthy baby girl. The two haven't seen each other since. Their emotional reunion is tonight's moment.
I am so happy today to actually meet you, meet your family, hold your baby. It has forever.
For the second time.
For the second time. Truly hold her. I wasn't supposed to be there that day. I went with my son-in-law and my family to a meeting that I wasn't supposed to go to. I wanted to go to Superstore, but not that one.
As soon as that door opened and somebody was there, I wasn't so scared anymore because, I mean, I was by myself and you don't want to draw attention, like in parking lots with lots of people.
The terror in her eyes. As a mother, I understand.
I'm so thankful that somebody was there that took the time to see why some crazy person was screaming in her vehicle. I'll be forever thankful that my daughter's here and that you helped us.
So if you caught that last bit, someone screaming in their vehicles, what was happening is Tamala Peters in the parking lot heard these sounds, went over pretty bravely, had a look inside the car, realized what was happening. She was an EMT, so when the baby came out right away, wasn't breathing, she knew what to do, turn the baby over and clear her little mouth and let her breathe. So from the category of people are good, that's the National for May the 12th. Good night.